Training with Raspberry Pi. Just to give you a little bit about myself, as soon as everything actually switches over. There we go. It doesn't like the mouse click, so we'll do it the hard way. So, anyway, my name is Nathaniel Davis. I'm a security consultant with MAD Security. I've been in the information security field for a little bit over 3.5 years now. I initially got my start doing policy and architecture. And one of the big things I found was to be able to write quality policy, you actually need to understand some of the threats that are out there so you can actually talk against them. And so I started looking at it and looking at some of these threats, and I realized that the best way to understand them was to actually take the time to... Can't hear me? Okay. All right, then I'll get closer to the microphone. Sorry about that. But one of the things I found was I need to take the time to actually understand what's going on with the different threats that are out there. So I needed a way to practice. And with our current legal environment, you really can't do that safely by going against other people's hardware. So I started looking for a way that I could do it myself. And that's how I came up with the RangeBox concept. Now what the RangeBox is, it's a Raspberry Pi platform that's running Raspbian, host AP, as well as a LAMP web server that hosts vulnerable websites, as well as every time you reboot it, it changes the Wi-Fi passkey. So if you want to actually work against it, you have to break it every single time. It's a new creative challenge on that. Now I recognize that this talk may be a little low level for some people here, so I actually put a challenge into the talk this afternoon, or this morning, and so I'm actually going to turn the device on, and it's going to show up, SSID is going to be live fire, and I have actually hidden a Where's Waldo image in there. So if somebody can actually tell me the title of that image, I've got a copy of my SD card that has the RangeBox image on it and a Wi-Fi dongle to go with it. So basically all you need is a Raspberry Pi after that, plug it in, and you are good to go. One of the great things about it is it's really small and portable.
What's the encryption type?
Oh, this is actually just a simple web encryption. That's all it is. It's a practice. That is the main purpose behind it, is practice. So I recognize for most people, that shouldn't take any time at all. So why a training platform? Well, I mentioned the actual legal environment that we're in right now. So you've got the CFAA using a device in a method otherwise intended. You got federal wiretap laws. Google just recently lost an appeal on that. So as they were snagging up all the Wi-Fi data as they were doing their mapping, they got into all kinds of problems with that. And then depending upon what state you're in, you've also got other individual state statutes that you're going to run afoul of. So I needed a safe place where you could learn and practice. So that's why I actually built the platform. It's easy to use. The image is simple. You just turn it on. Once you've actually got everything configured in the way I've built the image, you load it, turn it on, it's ready to go. It's repeatable. Every time you turn it on, changes the passkey. It's variable. And I couldn't find any place where this capability existed. There was nobody out there that actually had a randomization for a Wi-Fi passkey. I tried practicing it on just a standard wireless router where I had defined the key already, but there was no challenge because I already knew what it was. A lot of times I'd be like, why am I taking the time to do this? Let me just go ahead and key it in, and then I'll use it for what I was going to do. Now, why the Pi? It's small. It's cheap. For its size, it's actually very, very powerful. And it's portable. But the big one, I had it on hand and I was doing nothing with it. I needed something. It was a piece of hardware that I had available, so I decided to use it. Now inside the RangeBox itself, actually, you need, for it to be able to function, you need your Wi-Fi dongles, host AP, or anything that actually you can use as a access point. I use the ISC DHCP. You can use a different DHCP if you need it, or if you prefer that. This is one I happen to know. LAMP web server. On the web server right now, I'm running Matillidae from OWASP and all the different vulnerable applications that are included in that suite. The key randomization code, and I'm going to get into that a little bit further on once I actually talk more about host AP, but it just generates a random key. And there's some system configuration changes that had to happen to be able to actually get it to load in the correct order. As far as acceptable dongles, you need a device that supports master or AP mode. It has to be compatible with that. And there's a fantastic list that the wireless kernel guys actually have, and I've got a link to it there. I prefer the Artheros chipset. It's what I just happen to have. I have an Alpha. The one that I use on the Pi right now is a Netgear 150, or N150. You can use some of the micro USB dongles, like the Realtek. That's actually the 8188 CUS. That one actually requires a special variant of host AP. It's available. You can get it. I'm actually trying to build the image right now so that people don't have to go hunt for it. So I'll have both images available. And I've got those out on SourceForge. I've got a link on the last page. For host AP, it makes for a really, really easy access point, but it has a couple of problems. It's built for static configurations. And trying to actually do a random variable that you're calling inside the config, it just doesn't like it. It does not accept the system variable, so I needed a way that I could actually do this. So I actually built into, every time it boots, it deletes the original config file that was in there and rebuilds it from scratch. So there are 4 parts, and I recognize this is a little hard to actually see, so I'll describe them a little bit. So step 1 on this looks at whether to check and see whether or not there's a config file already in place. If there is, it removes it. Number 2 is actually just pulling from dev/random so that it actually gets a pseudo-random key. I recognize that for most applications this is not sufficient for a quality secure password, but for this application it's suitable enough. And then the extra string that's in there goes ahead and takes it and converts it to hexadecimal, and then it loads it that way. So 3 is actually just building the config file itself. It reads to the end of the file, just then cats it off, writes it to the config file that was defined above. And then 4 just shows where the actual key is in the config file itself. Now with DHCP, obviously it's going to be much easier than, you don't necessarily need it, but it's much easier than configuring the device that you're coming in on every single time. It just makes it nice and easy to use. One of the things that you have to do to actually make it function is you have to tell the DHCP to listen on WLAN 1. Otherwise, it's going to automatically default to ETH0. And because of that, you actually have to go ahead and define the subnet that you're expecting it on. And that's the subnet definition that I've got on that one. A couple of the challenges that I had actually building this. Boot order was a major problem on that. So as you get further into, as you actually tell it to load, you got a race condition on your daemons when they're loading. So under most defaults, you're going to have your host AP, your DHCP, and the script that we wrote to build the config file are all going to execute at the same time, and you're going to have problems. Typically, the config file won't be in place by the time host AP is ready to read it. It dies. DHCP can't find the wireless LAN that it's supposed to be listening on, so it dies, and everything just kind of gives up. So what I actually had to do was go in, do a update RC, and force the different configs the host AP and DHCP to wait until the config was built. The other problem that I had was network traffic. If there's no traffic on the network, you're not going to be able to do anything with it. So what I actually ended up doing on this one is just a simple little cron job, and it creates a ping, runs every minute. It sends out 3 pings at a 15-second interval, so you've got 1 ping going out. It's going out to it's an address that nobody on the network is using. It's not even inside the DHCP range, so there's no likelihood that anybody's going to get that address assigned to them. But even if it does, there's no traffic. You're not actually going to have any traffic on the network to receive, so you're not going to have anything that you can grab. And the easiest way to break WEP is an ARP replay. And so if you're not having any traffic or anything that's actually generating IVs, then you're not going to have, it's not going to work. Okay. So you have to have something to be able to actually initialize and to get the IPs, the IVs. And that's what this does, is actually creates traffic, because otherwise you've got a random key, nothing's going to connect to it. So I was going to do a live demo. Every time I've tried to do a live demo, something goes wrong. So this time I actually got smart and I actually recorded a video of it. So I'm going to run it. I'm going to talk over it as things are happening. And it's really, really coarse. You'll see me make typing mistakes. It is... And there's a couple of other things on that one. For some of the long keys, I use the AirCrack suite, the AirCrack NG suite. So for some of the long keys, I actually had them typed in previously, and so I just kind of quickly go up and replay them on that one. It just saves a lot of time, and I don't think you want to sit there and watch me type them in this huge long string. Okay, did we actually get yes? So yeah, I've got 3 different terminals open on this one. The first one is where I'm actually going ahead and just setting up the interface, so I'm going ahead and monitor. And the main reason I'm even showing this is I'm not talking about how to break WEP or how to do anything along those. This is just to show you that the capability exists, that it functions as I've discussed, and so you can see it. So I've already got it. I've already associated with it on the left side, and now I'm just going to go ahead and monitor and actually get the dump off of it. And you can see that we've got the IVs, one's already shown up, and it's just pecking up the pings. And so now I've actually started the ARP replay on the left side. We're waiting for the next ping to come through, and once it pings, you'll see it. There it goes. So while the ping's running, I'm going to go ahead. I've already got it, and it's going to collect the output. So when I started up the dump, it was already automatically dumping it to an output file. So it's going to run. And it's just going to actually crack the key while I continue to talk. So one of the initial ideas behind building this, and it's going to take it about 2.5 minutes or so to do this, but one of the ideas behind building this was I thought it would be a great way to actually train somebody on how to do this. So not only for myself to practice on, but for other people to practice on. And one of the future capabilities that I talk about on the next slide, once this portion is done, is you can actually set it up and you can add code into it so you can check to see whether or not something has associated with the device or has authenticated with the device. And there's 2 different steps on that, so you got to and a lot of people get those confused. Associating is just telling the device, "Hey, here I am. I want to talk with you, and I'm going to give you the passcode for you to validate." Authenticating is when that passcode has been in fact validated, and then it actually allows you into the network. And so the ARP replay won't work unless you actually associate with the device itself. So if you write a script that's actually going to log the associations and you're in a teaching environment, you can then monitor that as an instructor and say, okay, I've got these different MAC addresses for these different devices. I know which student that is linked with. And so then you can tell, all right, this student has successfully associated, or this student has successfully authenticated based upon the DHCP leases, as well as just the information coming off of that. So you can actually use that as a training tool to see what your progress is on the students that you're instructing. All right, where are we?
How hard would it be to extend that into, like, say, a honeypot?
That's something that I've actually looked into, and I don't think it would be that difficult to do. The main problem with this is with the randomization, the way I currently have it set up, is that it has to reboot every single time. And so that's the main problem with doing that as a honeypot, as opposed to, all right, somebody has successfully associated, and now they're actually working against it, and change the passcode.
So you can just log it off to a syslog server somewhere and collect the data, though, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can do it that way. And eventually somebody will get through, and then at that point in time. But one of the things I have set up on it right now is it reboots every 5 minutes. So I've got it set with a job in there. So every 5 minutes, it just brings it back up, brand new passcode. So as you'll see, it found the key, and the last 4 on that is 72 Bravo Bravo. And I'm going to switch over. I'm just stopping the collection on the other sides, but I'm going to switch over in just a second, where I had actually come in through SSH, and I have it set so that I write a log file of every key that's been created, just so I can make sure that each time it boots, it is doing what it's supposed to be doing. And so once I get it up, you'll see that the 72 Bravo Bravo key is the last key in this list. And so we have successfully found the key that was on the Pi. One of the problems that I actually had with my initial configuration was I was running this script on So it was actually running twice. So it would, during reboot, it would run, build a brand new one, and then one on startup, it'd run, build a brand new one. So I actually had to tell it to not run during the reboot phase. So this is the actual OWASP interface, just showing that it was on there. And one thing I missed, because I was running my mouth, was the actual first web page. So has anybody actually attempted to go against the device live? Nobody has? Live Fire? Yeah. I've got it up right now running, so I just didn't know if anybody had even bothered to try and mess with it while I was talking. There was a prize. There was a prize for anybody who actually attempted to. I figured with the reset it'd probably run about 10 minutes worth of time. But one of the things that I threw on there, the reason I asked is because I actually showed you the actual phrase that I was looking for in that whole process. It was just hidden right in there. And it's kind of a funny story on this one, and that's one of the things I'm going to get into in just a second, about how this came to be. I'm going to back this up so you can actually see it. There it is. Epic Waldo fail. That's what I was looking for. So a couple of buddies of mine actually said, hey, you'll never put us in a talk. Nope, right there. And so I'll tell you more about that in just a few minutes, but I want to continue on with future capabilities. So the access point, as well as the dongles that I've selected on this, support WPA, WPA2. If you want to do anything along those lines, then you actually will have to add in a secondary dongle, and it's a future capability that I've looked at as possibly doing. So once you get beyond just practicing with WEP, then you actually need to get into a little bit more with WPA, where you actually have to capture that initial association packet and then run that against a password list. We talked about device association logging and then how it can actually be used as far as either in an instruction environment or how it can be done for a honeypot. The other thing with it, since it is a web server, as more vulnerable applications are available, you can put them on there. You see some of these things that people talk about, or you see some of the other talks where they're like, yeah, I've created this new vulnerable web app. Here it is. All right, fine. You got your little platform. Here you go. You load it on it, and you have their information ready to go. But the other great thing is portable. I've got this in an aluminum case that I take pretty much everywhere just to play with it, and it's great fun to show off. So, just wanted a couple little special thanks for Security Moe and Totenkopf for actually giving me the chance to talk about this. Timberwolf, who was assigned to be my mentor on this. And then the two friends that I was talking about actually have the animated GIF of Funtime falling there. But so Funtime and Bad Jackie, mostly for them because they pushed me to give the talk. I was like, this isn't a really good idea. Nobody's going to want to hear it. And so they were pushing me, saying, hey, this is really a good thing. Nobody's thought about this. You need to get up and share it. And then company for actually giving me time off to come do this. So mad security on that one. As far as myself, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is Gither. Email for information on this device itself, or the image on it, is the Wi-Fi Rangebox at Gmail. Right now, I have the image up on SourceForge. It's under the tag of Rangebox. That is a 4 gig image. All you have to do is a DD off to an SD card. If you've got a Pi, just extract it directly onto that and then boot it and run it. Yes. Right now, I am running it's a Netgear the model number is WNA1100, but anything that I use right now is an Arthurus chipset, so the 9K chipset. So I've got an alpha that runs it. Yes, actually, if you give me a second, I'll back it up so you can see this one. So yeah, actually, I didn't add the Arthurus in here, or the alpha on here, but that's the preferred one. Like I said, the micros will work. You got to be careful if you get one of the ones that's the 8188 CUS, because it requires a special host AP configuration. I know that I think it's EDMAX actually released a special one that will allow host AP to work with that dongle in master mode. That's one of the things I plan on doing, and I'll actually put that up on SourceForge once I get it up. Cost, yes. Actually, that's one of the great things about this. So I paid, I think I paid $25 for my adapter. I think another $25 for the powered USB hub, and then $35 for the Raspberry Pi B edition. So really, you're looking at about $85 for a training platform is what you're looking at, plus case or anything additional on that. I would recommend, though, if you're going to do it and you're going to buy a Pi for this purpose, that you get the B Plus, because the Pi B Plus actually does not have the same power problems that the B has, and that's why I have to use a powered USB hub, because the B becomes unstable if you run the dongle directly from it. You have to have the extra power. But the B Plus, supposedly they have resolved this. I do not have one to test it, but that's something also to look at for the future. Plus, you get extra USB slots on that. Were there any additional questions? No. Yes?
Are there any issues running this on the original Raspberry Pi?
On the A?
Yeah.
The only thing I know of as far as the A, I actually haven't tried it on the A, but the first ones that come to mind, the A has lower RAM capability, and it does not have a RJ45 jack. So if you actually want to SSH in on the other side, that's not on the Wi-Fi, and do any modifications from that side, as opposed to going against the Wi-Fi, then that's why I would recommend the B. You'll either need a USB to RJ45 adapter, which you may be able to work with the. You could probably make that work with the A. So yeah, but for the most part, I think it would work, but just needs a little bit of tweaking. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. Are there any other questions? All right, I appreciate the time. Thank you very much.